Auch mal Hallöchen an die Leute auf YouTube, die das hier dann später gucken werden. Hallo, hallo, hallo. Wir machen heute eine etwas längere Reaction, die geht so 5 bis 12 Stunden. Ihr hört schon Jared im Hintergrund reden. Wir haben Citizen wird 10. CitizenCon. Und ja, der Toby ist mit dabei. Wir sind heute ein bisschen größer. Wir können aber auch, wenn es wichtig ist, ein bisschen kleiner werden. Und mein Chat ist auch irgendwo da unten. Also falls ihr euch auf YouTube verewigen wollt. Jared, jetzt halt doch mal die Fresse. Dann könnt ihr das machen. Wir werden nicht den Chat von Star Citizen offen haben. Also wir werden das so hier haben. Ja, hi Toby, hi.
Hi, grüß dich. Ich werde meistens in diese Richtung gucken, also nicht mehr in die Kamera, wie ich sonst immer versuche, weil da passiert alles.
Der hat nämlich,
aber das ist ja okay.
Der Toby hat nämlich eine extra Kamera, eine Live-Schaltung auf seinem linken Monitor. Rechten Monitor.
Da habe ich dich, da habe ich mich. Also, ich habe alles.
Ich habe auch alles. Ich hab dir es eben schon gesagt, ich habe es im Chat auch schon gesagt, ich habe hier auf meinem ganz linken Monitor, drücke ich die ganze Zeit F5 und gucke, ob neue Schiffe reinkommen, die man kaufen kann. Dementsprechend, ja. Das wird super. Ja, hier, ne? Also, Chat, hallo, grüße euch. Ich hoffe, euch geht's gut. Ich hoffe, ihr habt einen schönen Tag und wir werden einen schönen Tag haben. Wir werden eventuell zwischendurch einfach mal Leute aus dem Chat zwingen, hier ins Discord zu kommen. Die kann ich dann nicht mehr mit ins Live-Bild reinnehmen. Ich glaube, das ist dem einen oder anderen aber egal. Aber vielleicht kann man zu verschiedenen Themen dann einfach noch ein bisschen was schnacken, wenn die mal 2 Minuten Pause haben oder sowas, was hoffentlich passieren wird. Ja.
Zwischenbabbeln einfach.
Einfach mal.
Ich hoffe sowieso, dass die Pausen machen, weil ich glaube, also ich meine, ich war jetzt auf dem Klo vorher, aber wenn wir zwischendurch mal müssen und da passiert was Wichtiges, natürlich passiert es genau dann, wenn du weggehst. Das geht nicht.
Ich habe jetzt wohl hinter Holy stehen. Also, es ist,
ja.
Das ist,
der Mabu ist auch da. Nice, Mabu. Hallo.
Gerade nach Hause gekommen.
Gerade nach Hause. Er hat es perfekt geschafft. Er hat extra geguckt, dass er um die Zeit auch da ist.
Das ist gut. Das ist gut. Wie
gesagt, vor 10 Minuten kam auch die E-Mail, dass jetzt CitizenCon gleich ist. Das ist auch nochmal der Abschluss drin, was alles kommt.
Geil. Oh ja, das hast du bestimmt noch nebenbei offen. Das habe ich nämlich nicht offen. Warte mal, ich mache mir das nochmal auf. Noch habe ich ja die Möglichkeiten, mir hier die Sachen zu schieben und zu ziehen. Dann gehe ich nämlich mal hier auf der Robert Spatz Industries Seite. Den Live-Chat kannst du nicht ertragen da, ey. Das ist ja schrecklich.
Sieht aus wie Emote-Only-Mode, aber ist nicht.
Ja, richtig. So, bam. CitizenCon, now live steht da. Join us on Twitch.
Sind ja live.
Ach, guck mal, vor allem haben sie den Timer noch geändert. Die Zeit war auf 5 PM gestern noch, jetzt haben sie 4:30. Okay, also, in einer Minute geht's erstmal, ich denke, los mit Chris Roberts, der irgendwie Hallo sagt. Und danach kommt direkt Planetary Pyro. Also das, was uns mit 4.0 erwarten wird. Join us for a guided in-engine tour through many of the planets and moons of the upcoming Pyro system, exploring their current development status and why they are more than just burnt chart husks you may have read about. Ja. Gucken wir mal. Also wir haben ja letztes Jahr schon was gesehen, dass die Planeten relativ bunt sind. Also zumindest der, wo letztes Jahr auch schon die 400i gelandet ist. Der war ja schon relativ bunt und schön und nicht nur ein verbranntes Kohlestück. Gucken wir mal. 30 Sekunden. Ich hab Bock. Du auch?
Ja, auf alle Fälle. Ich bin auch ready.
Ich bin mehr als ready. 5 Stunden, 6 Stunden seid ihr jetzt, wie gesagt, mit uns. Ihr werdet es aber in kleine Häppchen dann auf YouTube bekommen. Das ist vielleicht nochmal wichtig zu sagen. So, ich mach mal lauter, weil die Musik ist aus. Einfach kaputt. Los geht's. 10 Sekunden. Ich halte die Fresse. Wenn ich die Fresse halt, kommt gar nichts. Das ist auch blöd.
What my favorite thing about the community is?
What am I gonna say?
It's gonna sound cliche, but
they believe as much as we do.
I love them because they continue to support us.
It's the only thing that's kept me going.
I've seen a lot of games and I've seen a lot of invested players, but
they're right there with us throughout the whole process.
It's unlike anything that I've ever worked on.
The thing I really like the most about the community is how welcoming they are.
To new players entering the verse for the first time.
New players come every day, and I find that
they're always happy to show people the ropes.
I found it very wholesome.
When I first did the CitizenCon, where I got to fly the Carrack, everyone was so supportive, and the cheers I got when we were flying through that wormhole was unbelievable.
their effort they put into, like their creativity.
Such as building a simulator inside of an entire RV or...
The cinemas. I love watching them on my lunch break.
I enjoy watching the videos on the content.
There was one recently on Twitter where it was like the 100 players entering the atmosphere that just looks really grand.
I love all the memes.
Some of the incredible fan art and passionate drive that you see come out of them is fantastic.
How they come up with crazy ideas each and every day and surprise me.
I really like all the crazy shenanigans they get up to in the PU.
I can't cuss, can I?
The new and exciting ways they find to
break shit.
Just the random stuff that you do. It's not like the gameplay we intend.
People doing crazy stunts in their ships.
I'm from the character team. That's why I think it's cool when they show off all the ships, because that's really the only time I get to see them.
They create the community by themselves, and that's really, really cool.
My favorite thing about the community around events.
Going to Bar Citizen.
It's always fun to meet some of the backers.
They've all been lovely to me in person. Even if they're like really frustrated, you can tell it's just, they have so much love for it.
I really like it when the community is very detail-oriented about our work.
To see how excited they are about our progress.
How much inspiration we get from them, from their ideas.
I love the genuine enthusiasm.
The quick turnaround on feedback. I love that.
And how they're always interested in what's coming up.
I especially appreciate the people who are able to keep track of dates.
They, call us out.
It really impacts our decision-making process for, what did we do right? What did we do wrong?
It is the most rewarding thing in the entire development process.
We're not making the game alone. We're making it with the community.
Still keep faith in us.
They really do make all this possible. I'm living the dream. We all are.
My favorite thing about the community, it'd be impossible for me to narrow it down to one. And if somebody said you had to, I'd probably just turn and walk away.
Ich weine jetzt schon. Das kann doch nicht sein.
Wein? Ja, war sehr gute Einstiege so.
Hi, I'm Chris Roberts. Ever since I saw Star Wars as a wide-eyed 8-year-old, I dreamt of being a hotshot pilot saving the galaxy or a lovable rogue making my way across the cosmos. It inspired me to make Wing Commander and has influenced everything I've done since then. 10 years ago, after 20 years of making games, I was burned out, so I took a break. But I never stopped playing games nor loving them. And now, I'm ready to come back, and I'd like to show you something I've been working on. But I don't want to build any old game. I want to build a universe. I want to build a game I always wanted to build, but I didn't have the tools to do until now. One that you can fly off a carrier fighting a heroic war on the front lines, but also one that you can muster out and find your own fortune in the stars wherever your spaceship takes you. I want to be able to share this experience with my friends and fight against real opponents in space, not just AI. And I want this to be as good or better than any other game out there, and I want to actively push the boundaries of what you can do in a game. None of this would have been even possible 2 years ago. But with Moore's Law driving PC performance and cost and the gaming community embracing talented developers via crowdfunding, I believe it is possible today. I've never been accused of having a small vision, and so I thought it was best if I share my ambition with you visually. I'm pretty excited by how it's joined out, so why don't you come join me for a sneak peek. 10 years ago, I stepped out onto a stage at GDC Online in Austin, Texas, and revealed Star Citizen to the world. We broke all records in crowdfunding, helped kickstart a revival in space games, and embarked on a journey with all of you to build the most immersive virtual universe ever conceived. I did say that I'd never been accused of having a small vision all those years ago. Every year since then, we have celebrated our anniversary with what we dubbed CitizenCon, a celebration of all of you, our community, without which we would not be here. When I made the original pitch for Star Citizen, there were no employees, no studios, and just a proof of concept demo cobbled together in CryEngine by myself, the help of a few people in their spare time. You couldn't play Star Citizen as it was an idea, not a game. The first few years was more talk and not as much show, but we managed to release the Hangar module in 2013, Arena Commander in 2014, and the first steps into the persistent universe with Star Citizen Alpha 2.0 at the end of 2015. The real game changer was Star Citizen Alpha 3.0, which we released at the end of 2017, which allowed players to first step foot on fully realized and detailed moons instead of just traversing space. 2018 brought the first planet in Erste, and from there we filled out the rest of the Stanton system from ArcCorp to Microtech and finally Crusader with its floating cloud city of Erste last year. Today, there are just over 4 million registered accounts, with 1.7 million of them having purchased the game. And while we still have lots of features and content to build before I'm ready to consider Star Citizen done, people are playing more than ever. This year, our average daily unique players is around 50,000, and we have peaked at 130,000 several times this year. This compares with just under 10,000 back in 2017 and 32,000 last year. But the most amazing stat is the average playtime of someone that logs in 2022 is 3 hours a day. Back in 2017, this was 48 minutes, 64 minutes in 2018, and then jumping to 2 hours in 2019. From there, we've been steadily increasing. In 2022 alone, people have spent 36 million hours in the verse so far. So this is a testimony to the hard work the development and our online teams have been doing to make Star Citizen, even in its alpha state, more performant and stable than it's ever been, and the increasing amount of features and content that are available making for viable daily gameplay, even in Star Citizen's alpha state. Cloud Imperium Games has grown just as much. Today we're at 835 staff worldwide, all dedicated to building the most immersive virtual science fiction universe ever. In the next few weeks, we'll be welcoming 500 staff to their brand new studio at Manchester Goods Yard in Enterprise City, where we are filming this show from. All of this is down to your patience and support. Building a game of the scale, detail, and scope of Star Citizen, as it is conceived today, that allows us to seamlessly go anywhere from inside to outside, from space to planet, with no loading screens, all with millimeter detail, with everything being explorable, persistent, interactable, with thousands of players online together, at the visual quality of the biggest AAA games, is perhaps the most ambitious goal that has ever been set off towards in gaming. I am both humbled and thankful of being in the position of chasing my dream to build a truly immersive universe. And it has only been possible by building it outside the traditional publisher system, with a direct relationship to our secret source, you, our community. The strength of the Star Citizen community is the real unwritten headline to our longevity and future. The connections and friends people have made along the way, the events organized inside the game and outside by the various orgs. This year, we've had 140 Bar Citizen events put on around the world, with some of the most recent being in China, South Korea, Singapore, Paris, and Florida. The Chinese Bar Citizen had over 300 attendees and a 5-meter-long 3D printed model of the Retribution super battleship from Squadron 42 built by the local community. Hopefully, next year we can return to an in-person CitizenCon, and I and the rest of the team at CIG will have the chance to spend some time with you in person. But for now, let's get the show on the road. 10 years ago, the ship I arrived on was a single-seater. Where we're going in the future, we're going to need a bigger ship. I present to you the only constant. You may have thought it was green screen, but we need something a little bigger for where we're going to entertain you and tell you about the game in the future. Here's a dedication plaque. The only constant in game development is change. Constellation Phoenix, my favorite ship. Prototyped by Roberts Space Industries, commissioned from London Shipyards, Earth, Sol 3. Launched October 2952, Manchester Starport. Captain Jared Huckabee. Jared, that wasn't the deal. You weren't going to be the captain of the ship.
I sent an email.
Oh, that must have gone in my junk folder.
Take a seat. Welcome
Okay,
aboard.
well, it's not bad. It's quite a nice little setup here, isn't it?
We've been talking about this on and off since 2015.
I know. I had to do something to get you over to the UK.
Hey, you know, he knows what I like. So what do you have?
Well, let's do a science fiction drink.
Right.
Can you do a Pangalactic Gargle Blaster?
Pangalactic Gargle Blaster. No, I can do this really dry martini that we had pre-prepared before shooting.
Wow.
Hey, it's our first show. We gotta start small.
Look at that.
Hey, we'll get better. So what do we toast to?
Well, the past 10 years and the future, the next 10 years and beyond, and the community.
Oh, we did that as there we go. Cheers.
And cheers.
Das was Basti, du loopst deinen Sound.
All
Wow.
right, so.
That is strong. Ooh, that curve.
That's why we didn't cover anything. So what do you think? Look at my jacket. Stegman Cordamon, Voyager. Nice.
It's a bit blingy. I mean, you do look like you're a Knight of the Rocks.
Yeah. Night of the Rocks.
Ja, nur zum durch das.
I don't be a twinsy with you. No. Let me check the rest of the set out.
Okay.
But it's tailored.
It looks good on you. Not saying it'd be the same for me. Oh wow! Look at all these cool artifacts. You got this Hadician artifact. There's a bunch of stuff. That's really cool.
Kein Problem, es hat ein bisschen Echo, aber es hat nicht gestört.
Wow.
Ich finde das super, ey. Stell dir das mal als Streamer-Setup vor.
Ich bin gerade schon am Überlegen, wie ich hier umbaue.
I am. It's a very nice chair. I like a desk. We've got a bubble head. This is a great place to interview people from. What's it like sitting over there?
I'm getting a newfound appreciation for how awkward it is on this side. So what do you think? We should start the show?
I think we should start the show.
All right, let's start the show. Our first presentation of the day is Planetary Pyro with our good friend Maximilian Keilisch from our Frankfurt studio. He's going to take you on a tour of 6 of the neat locations coming in the upcoming Pyro system, the first of our Journey to 4.0 presentations of the day. So take it away, Max.
Ich finde es ultra geil, dass Chris Roberts die Show quasi mitleitet. Finde ich ultra gut. Das ist einfach mal wieder nicht so wie letztes Jahr kurz was sagen und dann macht Jared alles quasi, sondern er ist halt einfach dabei. Mega geil.
Yeah.
My name is Max.
Hi, Max.
I'm here on behalf of the Planet Content team today. I'm a senior environment artist and I want to show you some of the cool stuff that we worked on in the last 2 years.
Wie kann der denn Senior sein mit 26?
Das heißt nur, dass er eine vierte Position hat. Pyro 1.
So I have Pyro 1 open already. It's live in engine. This is like the current version of Pyro, so we're still gonna do like a polish pass on it, so not everything is done, but we still wanted to show you what we have so far. So the idea behind Pyro 1 is that it gets hit by solar flares like repeatedly.
Ooh.
We got some concept art from the concept art team, and the way that they visualized these solar flare hits was like glowing marks and streaks all over the planet. Unfortunately, the tech for the glowing part of it is still being worked on, so we had to make do with what we could use. So it's not glowing, but you can still see a lot of the blue.
Wir haben auf jeden Fall Atmosphäre, weil sonst hätten wir keine Wolken.
Pyro 1 already has some volumetric clouds. Not
Oder?
all of the Pyro planets have their volumetric clouds yet. So let's jump to one of the blue spots on the planet. I just tweaked like the sun position a little bit to make it look a bit nicer. And then you can see why it's blue. We added like tons of these crystals to Pyro 1. We've used crystals before on Wala, but I think we were a bit too we played it a bit too safe on Wala. I think we only put like crystals as ground cover assets. But for Pyro 1, we really wanted to push the shapes. So you can find like these really large crystals here. Heisenberg would be really happy here. Okay, then another interesting thing to highlight here, plants over there. So what's interesting about those is we made them like 3 or 4 years ago. They were supposed to be part of like a mission on a space station. The mission was scrapped, unfortunately, and ever since then this asset set has just been sitting in our like vault.
Ja, mega geil, dass
it's a really cool plant set, and I'm happy that we finally found a spot to use them. So this is another spot I want to highlight. It's also important for us that we do add something memorable to each planet. In the case of Pyro 1, it's this
Siehst du den Überhang hinten
spiky
links?
rock set that
das
looks
dieser
really
Steine da oben drauf
intimidating. We try to push the scale of the assets for the Pyro system. We felt like by now we got like the basic rocks and the scattering of the basic rocks to like a very good quality. So now we can explore more crazy shapes, I guess. And this is one of the sets that we made. It's not done yet. It still needs a polish pass. But I wanted to show you guys what it feels like when you're in-game walking around here. Now I want to show you my personal favorite biome of Pyro 1. It's this biome here, which has these really cool looking rock formations.
Oh, yeah,
they are massive in scale. Like if I jump in-game here, you get a good feeling for the scale of them.
Krass.
It's possible to land your spaceship on them. It's probably really fun to race through here. We can imagine that this is going to be like a nice combat space as well, because they do provide nice cover. Let's just jump to a couple different areas on Pyro 1 before we move to Pyro 2.
Ich hätte mir so ein bisschen aber gewünscht, dass wir nicht einfach nur wieder so graue Planeten in Anführungszeichen haben.
Naja, guck, das ist ja nur der erste.
Ja, es ist aber trotzdem wieder ein Planet, der sehr schlicht wirkt, wie halt alle Planeten derzeit. Weißt du, was ich meine?
Jetzt kommt Pyro 2. Pass auf.
So now we're on Pyro 2. in comparison to Pyro 1, you can immediately see the planet is like way more colorful. There's more variation in the use and values of the colors. We have like browns and like bone white spots, some red, and it's all contrasted by like a blue clear ocean. So Pyro 2 doesn't have volumetric clouds yet, but they will be there at release. So now I jump to one of the biomes of Pyro 2. What I want to highlight here is the improvements that we made to how acids spawn on the side of mountains. That was something that was always quite challenging for us to do, to have some natural transition from the terrain to the geometry and then also have like the rocks form in a natural way.
Finde ich sehr, sehr geil.
Now we can make nicer rock formations. It's not quite there yet. There are still improvements planned
hängt so ein
for
bisschen
it,
links,
but
rechts.
I think in comparison
Was
to
aber
what we
okay
had
wäre, weil Steine
before,
können ja überhängen.
this is a big step forward. Also, what you might see is the drawing distance of acids has been greatly improved. So everything you see here in the distance is actual geometry. So if we were to fly all the way over there, you will see that this is
ja, vor allem das LOD hat sich jetzt auch nicht wirklich geändert, oder? Die haben so detailliertes LOD-System, dass man es gar nicht bemerkt, dass man weit weg ist. Das ist ja krass.
So now I jumped ahead to a really cool biome on Pyro 2. It's simple, but I think sometimes less is more. In this case, what sets this biome apart from the rest of the planet is that we added these calcified trees, and they spawn in very dense clusters.
Der Boden hier sieht geil aus.
So you almost get like little forests of them. So it's supposed to look very dry and kind of dead, but still in a
das sieht echt
pretty
gut aus.
way.
Also
Okay, if we look at it from this angle, what I really like about this biome is the contrast that you have here on the
da macht doch ein bisschen grün, Leute.
Dry, but
Da ist
then
doch
in the
Wasser.
background you have, like,
Wasser
the
heißt doch, da kann
clear
Leben entstehen.
blue ocean.
So ein
So
bisschen.
this is one of the red areas on Pyro 2.
So wie hier.
It's kind of like a sandy desert, but we try to add like a lot of different geology acids, different mixes of bushes and grasses. So it's not like a dead desert, but it feels kind of lively. And you find like lots of foliage here. We have like these cliffs in the background, which are pretty dark. And it's another nice contrast of this planet, where you have like the saturated red terrain and the dark bedrock. So jumping to this point here, what I want to highlight is the improvements that we made to our ground textures.
Ja, sieht so viel besser aus.
Previously, like 2-3 years ago, we had to rely a lot on ground cover acids to add geometry and detail that the ground textures alone couldn't give us. But ever since we got terrain displacement, we get like really nice shapes just from the textures
vor allem steht man dann halt auch nicht auf so einer unsichtbaren Plattform, sondern das ist halt quasi wirklich der Boden. Also der ist sehr uneben.
And the amount of detail that you see on the ground.
Aber trotzdem ist noch, also der war jetzt so ein bisschen Hörsten.
Pyro 3 ist entweder der Lava-Planet oder der Finalist war der Verletzung.
Das ist der bunte, der gelbe.
So last year you saw that like yellow is kind of the accent color of Pyro 3. So from this distance you can see through the volumetric clouds.
Letztes Jahr war alles gelb. Wir fanden das aber blöd und haben jetzt alles tot gemacht.
Talked about what's making it look yellow, which is the moss, and I want to like jump down to the planet surface and show you the amount of detail that you will see when going up close to the moss. So we're down at the surface now.
Das will ich sehen. Genau das will ich sehen.
A lot of time and effort was spent on making the moss look just right, so like the right level of fluffiness.
Gut, aber ich meine, statistisch gesehen wären auch die meisten Planeten im Weltall natürlich eher so Steine.
Ja.
Und es gibt nur ein paar davon, wo so Leben ist, aber es ist schon
smaller
Krasser,
moss
guter
on the
Kontrast und
ground.
sowas finde ich interessanter.
We combine
Ja,
it
das
with
stimmt.
like yellow grass.
Ich weiß nicht,
And it makes for like a really
irgendeiner, so
interesting
ein Wissenschaftler hat ja mal
biome. So it was
gesagt, so
really
einer von
important for us
100
to
Millionen
make
Planeten
this
oder
biome
sowas
look
ist wie
really
die Erde,
dense.
dass man darauf wirklich
So
Leben
we
haben
push the
könnte.
amount of acids that we're using.
Also so ein perfekter
So
Planet
it's
halt wie die Erde.
basically completely covered in foliage. Compared to Erste, for example, which
das sieht
Erste and
richtig geil aus.
Microtech, which are probably our densest planets when it comes to foliage. This is way denser. The good thing is that we don't have any trees here, so all the budget we can use on ground cover, on grass. Now we jump to a Pyro coast biome. The improvements we got to the coast biomes is that we can now use a OPR override for every single biome. Previously, we could only use one global override per planet, which, as you can imagine, is not enough when you have something like Stanton 4, where you have snowy regions and the spruce tree regions.
Was
and
schneit
one
da eigentlich?
object preset just can't
Das ist
cover
Asche, ne?
every coast. We added these coral, like coral geology set to have some of the yellow also along the coast.
Ja, Eichi. Also es gibt eine Menge von diesen perfekten Planeten gibt es, aber halt nicht in den nächsten 10 Sonnensystemen von uns ungefähr.
The nice mossy areas. Previously, when we made coast object presets, we played it a bit safe and only used 1 or 2 acid sets. But due to the fact that we can now push the density along the coast as well, you can find different kinds of coral, seaweed, different pebbles and rocks. And other stuff. Now I jump to one of the volcanic regions on Pyro 3. You might not expect to find vegetation here, but we did add a little bit of vegetation to this region to make it a bit more interesting. What I want to highlight here is the quality bar that we set for ourselves when it comes to improving the look of our vegetation. So this is one of my favorite new vegetation sets that we created. You can see the amount of detail on display.
Sieht so gut
Here we have like nice
Auf wie viel
little
Variation da
flowers
drin hast du?
and
Oben so, genau,
these,
oben so
like,
Ähren, dann so Blumen und dann die
knots or
Blätter
whatever,
haben
like
dann,
pods.
die sind oben grüner als unten und so.
And it's just like a really cool
Unten
acid
dann so ein
set.
Stamm
So
noch.
when flying
Das ist
over
mega
the
gut.
volcanic regions, you will find pockets of these scattered all around, just to make the area like a little bit more lively. Before we move on, let's jump around to a couple more places.
Oh, schön.
Ah, der Himmel, gut. Nice,
Ja. Genau so will ich Planeten haben und nicht nur so graue Betonklötze. So Dortmunds als Planeten.
4 oder 5 ist Lava.
Now we're on Pyro 4, which is my personal favorite of the Pyro system. Yeah, just full disclosure, you can probably tell that the clouds here are not done yet. They do look a bit busted, but yeah, they will look amazing once the planet comes out. So let's focus on the
Man hat die doch
shapes.
ausgestellt
We
mit heutigen
created some
Rechnern.
of these terrain shapes special
Das ist
for
voll cool, das
Pyro
sind auch
4,
andere Arten von, guck mal, die sind so
because it's loosely inspired by like Scottish highlands. So there's not a lot of like verticality, not a lot of trees. So everything is kind of coming from the terrain and from the smaller acids that we scatter on the terrain geometry.
Oh, ist schon sehr, sehr scharf, also ne,
and then you can see
sehr kantig.
the amount of ground cover acids on display, the variation in color, but it's all grounded by like the color of the soil. And it just
Ich sag
like
ja immer, wir
we
brauchen
have
Städte und sowas auf dem
multiple
Planeten.
new
Ne?
vegetation sets on display here.
Aber brauchen wir ja gar nicht, weil
So
wir
first of
bauen ja
all, we
irgendwann
have
die
this,
Städte auf dem Planeten.
bush set here,
Weil ich sag ja
which
immer,
is
die Planeten sind so
called,
kahl und keine Ahnung
I think it's
was.
called a fire
Aber
stalk,
ja, die sind halt kahl, weil
it's kind of like
wir
a
als
modified
Spieler die noch
version
nicht
of
bebaut
the
haben.
real world thing. They add like a little bit of
Dementsprechend
color
kommen
to
ja
the
so
area,
Highlights von Städten und so
and
weiter
make
werden ja
things
automatisch
pop.
entstehen, wenn wir das
We
bebauen
have
dürfen.
These ones here, I forgot the name of the acid set. Yeah, they also
Das
look
sieht
quite
ultra
saturated
giftig aus, das Ding.
and interesting. We also try to improve the quality of our tree sets.
Kamera, okay.
If you compare like the trees that we have on Erste to these ones, the geometry count is way higher. The texture resolution is a bit higher, and they just look
da hinten auch
more
wieder so
polished
Berge.
and nicer.
Ja, und
which means that
so
eventually
ein
we
Cliff
have to go
quasi.
back to Erste, to Microtech and give
Wir dürfen, wenn Quantas
the
darf, ja.
trees there like a little makeover. So what was really important for us was to improve the blending between different biomes.
Das sieht
So you
richtig
see
gut
here,
aus.
these are two fairly simple biomes. There's a clear distinction between them, but the transition still feels very natural. So if we go down here,
Ja,
you
mega
have
gut
like the
gemacht.
red grass and it kind of feathers out. Yeah, it feels very organic and natural. Let's jump to the most experimental biome that we've made so far. So for this biome here, the concept art team gave us some really interesting concept art, because
This
this is easily some of the biggest rock formations that we have in the game
Da kannst du
so
durchfliegen.
far. Actually, let me try to fly a ship so you can see the scale.
Mal gucken, was er für ein Schiff nimmt.
So they're massive
Da
in
passt
scale.
ordentlich
And
was
what
durch.
was the hardest part about getting these
Mit
to
den
look
Wolken am
right
Boden
is
ist auch geil.
that they're
Guck mal.
So ein
supposed to
richtig
look
geiler
really good
Nebel
from a
und
distance.
das sieht ja so
Because
gut
you would
aus.
expect something this big
Und auch oben so eine dicke
to
Decke.
be visible
Ja.
almost
Dichte
from
Decke.
space. But then the tricky thing is also to make them look good when you're standing up close to them. Let me jump in game so you see how big these rocks actually are. So they are massive in scale. You can probably land
wie
your
geil.
spaceship on them and walk on them,
Gott.
and they make you feel like really small. But I think it's a really good visual that you have these like
Das finde ich gut.
dark
Das sieht
gray
mega gut
rocks
aus.
against the crimson
Ja, vor allem mit dem Nebel,
of
das ist
the
wirklich, das
soil
macht
and
so
the
viel
grass.
aus.
Ja, ich weiß noch nicht,
here's a
was das
little
auf dem Boden
happy
ist. Ob das
accident
wirklich ein
where we
Nebel
have the volumetric clouds
Ja.
covering the terrain, and
Das
because
fett.
the height map, the difference in height
er
is so
sagt's gerade.
large, we actually get like shapes of the terrain poking out of the volumetric clouds.
Geil.
Yeah,
Das
you can
ist ein
probably
happy
spot some of
accident.
the
Geil.
tiling issues that we
Echt
have
gut.
here, which is something that we still need to look at. But like I said before,
Ja, es
this
ist
is
an
still
manchen
work in
Ecken halt noch
progress.
sehr, sehr kantig, aber
So
ey,
it's
das
gonna
ist völlig
change
egal.
a bit.
Bringt die
Because I
Planeten.
mentioned
Jetzt,
biome
heute.
diversity along the coasts before. I just wanted to highlight what one of the coast biomes on Pyro 4 looks
Ja,
like.
das sieht ein bisschen aus wie
So this
Hursten.
one is kind of this wet sand.
Aber so nass, ja, das ist cool, dass es so
we
nass
scattered
aussieht,
some of
wirklich.
the seaweed, some of these
Das ist schon gut, ja.
lava plates, and some of these pebbles. And
Yeah,
then we also
ground
get like
FPS.
nice seaweed moving with the waves of the ocean. One interesting thing on Pyro 4 is that we have a massive crater region. On other planets we have individual craters which are a whole height map, or like 3-4 smaller craters on one height map. But this is actually multiple height maps forming one large crater. And you can see it all the way out in space. Like this whole region is one big crater, so it's a mix of like the global displacement texture and then the height maps of the ecosystems spawning on top.
Ultra
Plus the
cool.
volumetric clouds make it look really epic here. Now we've flown down to the surface of the crater. We wanted this to feel very
Ja,
spooky
muss
and
alles
grim
kaputt sein,
and kind
genau.
of dark. So we
Geil.
have these dark fantasy forest-looking trees, which look kind of creepy. Then we bring some of the red grass back from the previous biome. We go down to the
Ja, Mabo, du
surface
kannst
of
aber
the
nicht,
crater. You can see that we added
also
this
so viel kann man gar nicht
dark
entdecken. Die müssen schon,
forest-looking
ihre
tree
Highlights
set,
müssen sie
some
schon ein bisschen zeigen,
creepy
weil du
shapes,
fliegst 4000 Mal über den
denke auch,
Planeten und hast es nie entdeckt. So.
Ich glaube auch, dass so wie Eichi sagt, du findest bestimmt noch andere Stellen, die einfach cooler aussehen als das, was sie zeigen. Aber es ist schon cool, so einen Überblick zu haben, finde ich schon gut. Ich meine, klar, es wäre. Und außerdem kommen noch genug neue Planeten danach. Wenn die Sternensysteme raushauen können, hast du jeden
So far we looked at
Patch im
4
Prinzip
of
Neues.
the Pyro planets, so let's switch it up and look at one of the moons.
Ach so, das stimmt, das waren nur die Planeten. Ja, macht Sinn.
This one is Pyro 5C. Similar to Pyro 4, you can see that it has a landmark that you can see from space. In this case, it's not a
Pyro 5 noch
crater,
nicht
but it's
gezeigt.
like,
Doch,
like
das
a
war eben Pyro
long
5, oder?
streak
Nee, das war
of
4.
Slick obsidian. So let's fly down
Ja,
to
vielleicht
the
wollen
surface
sie
of
den
the
Vulkanplaneten nicht
streak
zeigen.
and
Oder
we'll have
später.
a look what it looks
Weil
like.
das ist jetzt 5C, also das ist...
Genau, das ist ein Mond, der dritte
Again,
Mond von 5.
we start with like the global height map, where
Vielleicht sind sie mit 5 noch nicht fertig.
there's like a little bit of a bump up,
Boah, das ist krass.
and then
Das ist
it
ein
goes
Bump.
down to form
Das ist richtig so eine
the
Narbe.
crack, and then we scatter the ecosystem height maps on top to get the look that we want. So if we go down here,
das sah aber auch eben schon so geil aus, wie so eine richtige Narbe auf dem Planeten.
Shapes, some smaller craters, and then it transitions into like these quite spiky looking
ich glaube auch, dass der als Highlight nochmal zum Schluss
kommt. And then down here they feather into like these longer ridges of bedrock before it becomes smooth down here. And if we jump to this point, which is a really cool spot because like the sun just hits the obsidian in the right way and everything
genau,
looks
Fettcat,
like
die reden
nice
ja über das Ding hier und nicht, dass sie wieder Geld ausgeben wollen.
The ground looks quite different from other planets. So instead of
das sieht
soil,
mega gut aus.
It almost looks artificial in a way.
Genau,
Acid-wise, we're
wie so ein
one of our
metallisch.
Genau,
that you can also find
so eine Metalllegierung drüber. Super, Alter, das sieht so gut aus mit dem Licht.
A bit of polish, so we improved the shapes.
Stell dir mal vor, du siehst so ein Schiff anfliegen durch das Tal da hinten.
Ja.
Look extra cool.
Ey, das sieht wirklich wie so eine Metalllegierung, einfach auf den ganzen Steinen und so.
These surfaces. To make this area a bit more interesting, we decided to add some of these white
Go Hähnchen, vor 20 Jahren war das einfach Wing Commander.
So the area doesn't feel too samey.
So sah das damals aus.
And it's always nice to have like the occasional pocket of vegetation.
Und mit Pyro.
Das ist Pyro. Das hier ist Pyro. 4.0, genau.
We went with the opposite route.
Zeigen gerade die Pyro Planeten und Monde.
So instead of being shiny and slick, they are more dry, covered in dry sand. The vegetation is dry. We added some of these spiky shapes to add some verticality to the scattering. But yeah, outside the obsidian crack, this is what you will find on the planet most of the time. So this go-to point I picked to show some of the subtle color that we added to Pyro 5C.
Das ist eine schöne Farbe.
So the obsidian crack is like kind of just dark gray, black. The desert I just showed is also light gray. So we
ich mag den Übergang von diesem gräulichen zu dem roten, finde ich super schön.
So we added some of these red hues to the occasional biome.
Ja.
It's very rocky.
Also gleichzeitig
also
Alien, aber
the
natürlich
red sand on the rocks from the biome accumulation, and it looks really nice how the red creeps up into the crevices of the height maps in the background.
Oh, Pyro 6. Okay, sie zeigen Pyro 5.
Wirklich? We're gonna end our showcase today on Pyro 6. Pyro 6 has a very interesting color palette. Like I really like the yellows and the pale beige tones of the terrain. And then you have another blue ocean. As you can see, the terrain is kind of ridden by craters.
Ja, das
and we get these really cool shapes where the ocean fills in those craters. If we jump all the way down to the edge of one of those craters.
Wie blau ist denn das Wasser?
At the edge of one of those craters. I'm jumping in game right now just to show you what it feels like walking along here. You can see that we added some dramatic looking coral shapes, and then eventually you walk down here toward one of those craters that's filled with
guck mal, wie schön hellblau dieses Wasser aussieht.
This is still work in progress, so one of us, probably me, has to go in and adjust the settings of the spawning here, and then we're right at the edge. And I really
auch geil, er will was zeigen und ihm fällt direkt ein Fehler auf, ne? Das ist mega gut.
Das ist halt Work in Progress, steht hier dran.
Ja. Alter, ist das ein schönes Blau.
Then over here, I want to introduce you to our human scale ref mesh.
Okay,
his name is Rüdiger. And he's super helpful when we set up object presets, because you can immediately see how the scale of assets feel when you have him in situation.
Ich wette mit dir, dass wir den Rüdiger jetzt öfter mal irgendwo sehen werden, weil sie ihn vergessen wegzumachen.
That object preset spawns, and yeah, he helps us find the right values.
Ja, mache ich aber auch so. Also bei meinem Game stelle ich auch überall ein Männchen hin, damit ich eine gute Ratio von Gelände zu Menschen bekomme und so. Also es ist ja was ganz Normales, das man
assets that we put on top. So the transition is really nice from this ground texture to this one.
Mega gut aus.
And then we have like the same rock set on both of them.
Ja, cool.
And it makes for like a nice amount of detail on the ground. Then occasionally we spawn some of these spider-looking ground cover meshes. So this spot here is really nice because you get like the particles, the monochromatic terrain, the assets, and it's all against the backdrop of the skybox of the Pyro system, which is red. Then we get like some really cool looking sunbeams coming through the volumetric clouds here. And then if I turn the sun and we make this dark and I jump in game, you can see how drastically the skybox impacts the lighting when you're on the dark side of the planet.
Das schimmert auch so.
The skybox is just
wie so ein Puls, ne?
Looks really good. So this is the
Pyro wird
skybox
so
for
schön
the
bei
entire
Nacht.
Pyro system. So you will see it,
Derzeit will man auf allen Planeten
on
so bei
every
Tag
single
sein, aber
planet.
bei Pyro willst du überall
It's
bei
just
Nacht
that
sein, glaube ich.
Pyro 6 has like a very thin atmosphere, so
oh, sieht das
you
gut
see
aus.
it well here. I'm happy to have had this opportunity to show you guys the work that we did in the last 2 years. I'm super excited to see you guys explore the Pyro system for the first time, to hear your feedback. There's still work that we have to do, but I hope that you are even more excited than before after seeing what I showed you today.
Ja, mega geil. Mega, mega geil. Also,
wahrscheinlich sind die Flüsse einfach noch nicht so weit, dass sie die Lavaflüsse zeigen können.
Genau, das denke ich auch. Aber guck mal, wie weit sie generell sind halt, ne? Weil wir sagen immer, ja, 4.0, das klappt ja eh nicht im März, April. Also das ist schon spielbar, was man da sieht. Ich meine, mich juckt nicht, wenn irgendwo mal ein Geröll irgendwie in der Luft rumfliegt. Das juckt mich wirklich nicht. Das ist absolut, absolut schön.
Boah. Hier oben auf so einem Plateau eine Basis bauen oder sowas, das wird so gut.
Ja, es ist...
Oder vor allem eigentlich am liebsten noch bei diesen großen Loops, bei diesen Riesenfelsen.
Ja, bei diesen riesengroßen, da direkt, oh, geil.
Kannst du direkt eine Wand sparen, weil da kann eh keiner durchschießen.
Auf gar keinen Fall.
Oh, nice.
Ja, die Clouds sind, glaube ich, mit die schönsten bisher im Spiel.
Ja.
Von das 3, ne? Ja.
Das ist genau der dritte, den wir... Das ist auch krass. Kein gerenderter Trailer, das ist einfach in-game.
Es ist einfach in-game. Also in Anführungszeichen in-game. Es wird wahrscheinlich über den ihr Tool sein, aber damit es flüssig läuft.
Ja.
Aber das ist schon... Ich bin mehr als begeistert. Ich hätte nicht gedacht, dass sie so weit mit dem Planeten sind. Ich habe wirklich gedacht, die hängen hinterher. Aber alleine, wenn man das sieht, kann man Pyro halt sehr, sehr, sehr nah sehen. Und es ist ja auch, es sind jetzt noch 6 Monate ungefähr, ne?
Oh, krass.
Das ist schon ziemlich, ziemlich geil.
Ja. Ich hoffe, dass sie aber heute noch was zeigen zu den Jump Points oder so.
Ja,
also, dass so ein bisschen noch aus am Rande zu Pyro kommt. Nicht, dass das Einzige war. Ich meine, es ist schon cool, auf alle Fälle.
Nee, ich denke, da wird noch mehr kommen, weil wir kommen ja jetzt, beim nächsten Punkt ist ja Investigations. Und das ist ja auch Journey to 4.0. Also, deswegen. Ich denke, da finden wir was. Und ich glaube, mein liebster Planet wird tatsächlich der Mond sein. Mit der Legierung da. Pyro 5C oder was?
Mit der Obsidiannarbe.
Brauche ich dann zweimal eine 4090? Nee, brauchst du ja jetzt auch nicht. Brauchst du jetzt auch nicht. Eine gute Grafikkarte bringt dir in dem Spiel noch nicht wirklich viel. Das ist alles einfach nur Ingame-Engine und nicht irgendwelche DLSS, Raytracing-Sachen von Nvidia. Das ist nur die Engine vom Spiel selbst bisher.
Ja, im Moment ist ein guter CPU wichtig eigentlich.
Ja, guter CPU, viel Cache ist sehr, sehr wichtig. Also der AMD 5800X3D ist der beste Prozessor, den du derzeit für Star Citizen haben kannst.
Übrigens soll von der 7er Reihe auch bald danach eine 3D-Version immer noch kommen.
Ja, aber auch wahrscheinlich nur 7800 und wird dann wahrscheinlich so um die 1400 Euro kosten.
Yes, he's a game developer, a founder, a CEO. He made his first game when he was like 15. Anyway, he was sitting in my chair. And he's left. I don't know where he went, but he should not be let back in the building. Yeah, black shirt, jeans. Yeah, just keep him out of the building. Because he sat in my chair. All right, thanks. When are we live? Hi, welcome back to CitizenCon 2952. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and welcome to the spaceship, to the only constant. We are joined here by two CIG luminaries, VP of Development, Mr. Brian Chambers, and Chief Development Officer, Mr. Aaron Roberts. How you doing, guys? You were looking at me, and you thought I was going to forget it because I couldn't remember it. That's right. During the thing. I'm not good with titles.
I know.
I've had 6 of my own, and my job hasn't changed. I can't check it. So,
I like your dig.
That's what I was going to be first question. Welcome to the
Hat er Dick oder Deck gesagt?
Good.
I like your dick.
We've been talking about this, dreaming about this, and just imagining doing this since 2015. Every time we talked about changing the stuff up and whatnot, like what should we do?
Erstmal schön Pyro im Hintergrund.
Like, we should build a spaceship. You should build a spaceship. So it's like, yeah, someday. But we did it.
No, it's cool. It's way cool.
I'm sorry.
And you're always shooting stuff. You're shooting material constantly. So having a dedicated space that's dialed in that you're cool with, right?
It's good.
So we just watched Planetary Pyro. That was the first of our Journey to 4.0 presentations that we're showcasing here today during CitizenCon 2952. It's a brief tour throughout some of the planetary locations you saw from the upcoming Pyro system. You two recently took kind of a whirlwind tour of where'd you guys go?
We basically went over to Asia because we really wanted to go and visit some of the community over there. And so it was actually quite a lot of fun for us and actually a great experience in terms of learning a lot about the community over there and what they would like and all that kind of stuff. And so it's actually one of the better trips I've been on and really enjoyed it. Got to meet fantastic people in the events everywhere we went, and so it was really good and really educational for me actually.
Yeah, same. We first went to Korea, had a nice bar citizen out there, hung out with people. Great food, great fun stories. While we were in Korea, we did a live stream into the China Bar Citizen that was happening at the same time. Mm-hmm. So we had some technical difficulties streaming while we were there.
That made it more interesting.
Yeah. We couldn't hear them and so on, so they were typing out questions, but the banter was great.
Wow.
And then the next week we jumped over to Singapore and hung out with those guys as well.
I was going to say, we haven't had any technical difficulties so far today. I don't know. I was going to say nothing in here is actually wood.
While we're talking about it, the community actually gave us some cool stuff. So first, this was given to us by the Korean community.
This is Korea. Yeah, we'll have you open this.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
This was for you. I don't know the full history behind it, but it is like a replica of an ancient scroll. But the characters are put together as Star Citizen characters.
Which is really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Which is incredibly cool.
That guy's doing the Steve Bender.
So we each got one of those as well, but they specifically wanted us to bring one back for you.
Let's switch to Brian's cam. Let me see if I can move this over here and get it here. Brian, I'm going to hand this to you so I don't get out.
Absolutely.
Hold that and get a little closer to the camera there. There we go. That's very nice.
Das ist richtig cool.
Yeah. Incredibly cool.
Right, now give it back because it's mine. Give it to me.
I'll miss it.
Give it back, it's mine.
And from Singapore, really cool.
Then we jumped over to Singapore, and while we were there,
Ich glaube also die eher östliche
everybody at the event signed this awesome...
Region, ich glaube, die fiebern so richtig mit Star Citizen.
Ja, ich glaube
We did not plan this.
No, we
didn't.
Clearly.
Oh, wie geil,
We've got
Mann.
everybody's signature, so we're going to put this up in our new offices in Manchester.
Das ist richtig
very
cool.
cool.
Finde ich super cool gemacht.
So this thing, but anyway...
And then there's other stuff in there. You can pull some of out if you want.
That's all for you.
Really cool little coins they made and
kleine
cards.
Taschen gemacht.
And of course, if you're not familiar with what a bar citizen is, you can check out barcitizen.sc. It is a completely community backer-run organization that helps coordinate basically gatherings of Star Citizens all around the world, including most recently Singapore and China and South Korea. I know there was one in San Diego last night, if I was not mistaken. This says Bar Citizen Singapore, and it's made by the community.
Sind auch gerade heute sind ein paar Bar Citizens, wo alle zusammen gucken.
Oh, it's a Bar Citizen card.
Yep.
It's metal.
It's proper, yeah.
Nice. Okay, well, I'm going to leave that out. And there's some other challenge coins and stuff. We will go through this on our own time because people are probably like, just get to the next thing.
Exactly.
I know who our viewers are. So before we do move on to the next thing, Brian, Aaron, it is our 10th birthday, our 10th anniversary.
10.
10. It's 10 something.
There
was an internal debate whether this was the birthday or the anniversary, because the anniversary is sometimes in November, the birthday is in October. Whatever it is, it's 10. You got any favorite memories? Something? I don't know how long we're going to keep you here, so I want to use you when I got you here. On the spot here.
I've been here about 8 years, just about 8 years, right? So a fair amount of the 10. The first one that comes to my mind, there's a lot, but the most memorable one I would say would be 2016 at CitizenCon in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Very first CitizenCon I'd ever been to. Really hadn't interacted face-to-face with the community that much. We know we put a lot of love and effort into what we were going to show. Chris is on stage. He's about to show everything off. I'm looking for a seat. I couldn't find a seat. I went down basically middle floor in the theater and sat on the floor in between all the rows with all the backers. And as I'm sitting there and the demo's going, I already know the demo and the pacing, and then the sandworm blows out of the ground and everybody blows up. And I'm kind of below everybody because at this point they're jumping up. And just to be there and for the people to have the reaction of the thing that you've been working on, right? That's something I'll never forget. It was something you're at that level. You feeling the love from them, the excitement that they have of what they're doing. Wait, hold on. I'm used to working at companies where we hold our stuff for 2, 3, 5 years without showing anything.
Hähnchen, ich
So
bin
you
jetzt
have
auch
this
schon 8 Jahre
opportunity to
hier.
show this off, and you get this feedback, and it was my first basically interaction with community on a face-to-face basis. It was really cool.
Sehr geil.
Very cool. I was there at that time. I'm pretty sure we were sitting on the floor together at one point or another.
Probably, yes.
Aaron.
I mean, I think a lot of it's what Brian just said. I mean, the thing I always love to do and like to do and you know haven't been able to do in the last couple of years for obvious reasons is actually just whenever the event's going on, I hate being backstage, so I literally just go and find. I like to go out amongst everybody and just sit there and watch the whole watch the event and watch everybody's reactions to it, which is always a lot of fun. And the other thing about it is just that I've made so many actually good friends.
Das Neonschild so geil
in the
dahinten.
community.
What do we learn?
For meet people, there's a lot of
Völlig gestört, das Studio. Ich bin echt am Überlegen, was ich hier mache.
So the last 2 years have been
Muss hier noch mehr umbauen. Ich brauche auch sowas.
The ability just to be there with everybody and to see the reaction and have those conversations is the massive thing for me. It'd be too hard for me to pull, one event. I mean, there's some things that have happened which I probably can't talk about, which could be, but really in terms of the general thing, it's really the ability to be amongst everybody and see that.
I even think of overall just the journey we've been on in making this project, right? When I started in Frankfurt with a handful of other people in Germany, Hassan, IT in the UK, loaded up a van. And I remember this van showed up with our PCs, our monitors. Then they included like some pens and pencils and trash cans and a coat rack.
Oh, that's right. And then
we set everything up, and it was like cool. And we were just like, all right, what is
the
Star
event
Citizen?
after that where he basically was working so late, he got locked in Cologne.
Yes.
He couldn't leave. he basically got locked in, and so he basically had to sleep in the station, stuff like that. But no, it's just like lots of, I mean, it is all that kind of stuff. There's so many stories. There's so many times I've met people, and just all the events. It's been fantastic.
It's a follow-up to that Hassan story. Hassan is one of my favorite people.
He's good
here at LCG. We were at Cologne in 2016. That was a really hard event to manage, and sitting with him on that last day, he and I, everybody's off partying. We've completed the thing, and Hassan and I are breaking stuff down, and it was along with a bunch of other crew. And he just sits there and he goes, "Dude, I don't know if I can do this next year." I'm like, "There's nobody else to do it except us, dude." And he goes, "No, I'm going to take PTO next year." I'm like, "You are not going to take PTO next year." And the next year, he had 2 weeks, like before and after Gamescom, blocked off, and I'm like, "You took PTO?" Because I told you, I'm like, "You're my hero." You actually, and again, he set everything up. He had all the backups done. It went off flawlessly and everything. There are a lot of stories, and I'm interested to see how Ian and Todd are going to answer this question later on. That's enough chit chat at this point.
Was glaubst du, wenn das Game rauskommt, was die für Stories
design brief. Investigations. One of the most common requests we get from the community is to talk about things at their earliest states. Tell us what you're just thinking about, not necessarily the next thing or the thing after. Like, share the earliest design stuff for how a thing might work. Everything you're about to see can and will change dramatically from the point of today to the point where it makes the game. But we wanted to open that curtain to the earliest points, and we've got Luke Presley and Elliot Maltby, who are going to discuss an entirely new kind of mission. Not a new mission, an entirely new scope and type and design of missions that move away from combat and transport and go more towards cerebral deduction and investigation. So here we are, Design Brief Investigations, and we'll see you when you come back. Take care.
Batman Arkham City.